Hello and welcome all to the largest online conference of 2024. The Reclaim Retreat is here for you. Now, we have so much in store for you, and we would love to introduce ourselves. I'm Shanice Bestluck.
I'm Brody Bestluck.
And together we are here to provide something that we have never brought to you before, and it is right at the comfort of your own fingertips. So sit back, enjoy, and really see what a 360-degree discovery looks like for you about how to reclaim your destiny. So we are ready to dive into some really amazing stories that have been brought to you in this whole entire network of our beautiful Mother Earth planet, that these medicine and stories, heart-wrenching experiences, life path journeys, and holy shit roller coaster moments are really brought through the trueness of what it is to be a human being. Now, as we discover everybody's teachings, decisions, personal growth, sometimes the school of hard knocks, we ask that you are here to take what is most resonating with you, to maybe have an open mind about the process of why is this something in my space right now, and to really give you all a bigger dive into what 2024 all had in store for us today. So as we are with this full day, it is also one of the last full moons of 2024. We're going to be providing you so much more information about what this means. How do we use the awareness that sometimes it's not just a bad day or it's just a wrong kind of feeling kind of day. We are showing you that there is so much more purpose, meaning, and connection in our everyday, instead of us thinking that this is just something that is happening to us. Maybe it's actually happening for us. All of these testimonies of life are going to be providing you so much more clarity, wisdom, navigation, tools, so that you can understand and help you assess what you were put through in this last year and maybe your whole life story, so that you can then come into this theme of 2025 as we will reveal more awareness of what this year forward is going to bring us, and to help you understand your true destiny. Sometimes we play it too small, and we are done playing that game. We are here to give you back your voice, to reclaim your body, mind, and soul, and to make you feel proud of this existence that we call life. So if you are ready to dive in, we are. And we would like to just bring this as a time for you to gather throughout your day. We'll give you a little bit of guidelines and information to make sure that you're not missing out on anything. And we will give you some awareness that this is going to be recorded and brought to you so that you have this as your little help guidebook in your own pocket when it comes time to refresh, maybe reboot, or help you reclaim what it is about a certain moment, time of event, and purpose at this. So, Brody, do you mind just sharing a little bit about what we are dealing with for our speakers today, and how long are they going to be presenting, and what is that process going to look like?
Yeah, you betcha. So we've got a bunch of really, really inspirational speakers coming on to share their definitions and stories of how they reclaimed each of the 1 hour time slots throughout the day. We're going to introduce the host. There's going to be about a 40 to 45 minute presentation, and then everyone will get a chance to answer or ask questions within the comments, and you'll be able to ask the speakers what you might want to ask them, and then we will have some closing statements and then introduce the next speaker. So each hour on the hour, we're going to try our best to keep on schedule to bring you that new speaker. We've got speakers all the way starting at 8 o'clock all the way till 9 p.m. this evening, and then a closing ceremony at 10 p.m. So feel free to just hop in, hop out, keep it on in the background while you go throughout your Sunday. This is just a really fun, exciting, very free-flowing event for you guys all to enjoy. And like Shani said, it will be recorded and hosted on the Niche Nation page for you guys to go back if you missed any of our amazing speakers.
Thank you so much. Now, when we have brought this topic forward about Reclaim, the actual beginning of Brody and I's start or path collide, I guess, was in a environment conservation and reclamation purpose, and we met in a post-secondary experience and realized that that is not the way that we wanted to function our life. But everything, I believe, happens for a reason, and we were gifted the teaching about what reclamation meant. So we are bringing a little bit of that kind of food for thought about what reclamation actually means in a definition purpose. But then also we will be sharing a bit of our experiences about what it took to reclaim the actual essence and maybe what the bigger picture was for our life and our journey. So I'd like to leave you all with a little bit of a tidbit, and hopefully as you kind of watch throughout the day everybody else's journeys about their definition of reclaim, and what that meant for them. Reclamation is about a process, and when we are dealing with assessing a site, maybe about a forest or a lake or a natural preserved state of land and experience, we are trying to understand what did that place, that sacredness of the non-touch state of that parcel we would be assessing looked like, functioned like, how did it thrive before there was any interaction or damage. And so what happens is that when we are working with the reclamation part, in the scientific definition, this is where we have 3 different phases that we process. So as we are first walking into an experience, you are assessing this as a phase 1, that you are seeing this experience, if it was more on the land base, this parcel that was impacted. And so what we do is that we go and we are looking to get the best result that we possibly can with the tools and resources, with the amount of damage that has been done to this this environment, so that you can have the abilities to actually bring it back to the best function of life, so that it can be in our different assessing calculators and tools, that it is thriving to a state that it can be the best that it can be. So when we are looking at in people's lives, it's the exact same kind of awareness that we are looking at what was the innocent, the sacred, the native state of that being, your essence that it used to be, so that when we are looking back in the example of land, when we would look at a native grassland or a undisturbed wetland or a flourishing lake and shoreline, these different things were very easy to identify how each organism and plant and flow and literally gram of dirt or water held so much purpose in that space to create a very secure environment and habitat. So when we have disturbance, And sometimes this is caused by our environment also changing. So maybe the area is not getting as much sun as it used to, or there's more wind now, or the temperature has changed. And so this will all impact the environment as they're processing this. So when we're dealing with a quote unquote phase one process, we are gathering as much detail and information as we know of the historic information of that situation or land. And then we allow ourselves to sit and do all the paperwork to figure out, map out, see what was the details, how much was this there before and not. And then when we get into the second phase, before we get into the field, we have to make sure that all that data, we have the best knowledge that we can, because sometimes we're not actually in that space before we are actually trying to discover what's wrong with it. So we have to do all our due diligence beforehand to really figure out what are the things that we need to have in order to maybe keep our eyes, ears, and noses alert for our on-site view. So in our mind, body, and soul reclaiming, what we say phase one is about understanding what really was this essence or this person or this experience that you're really seeking to kind of reconnect or reclaim back to. So what were you like as a kid? What was your childhood like? What were your moods or environment? How did you deal with school pressures, all this and other information prior to the quote unquote hurt, harm, damage, destruction, rock bottom, addictions, divorce? What were all these things that were happening before the quote unquote tragic or impact was done? So once we understand the before, and then we have some of the awareness of where now the impact has happened. That's the second part of this stage, phase one. Now we're calculating, mapping out. We're using a lot of technical things that we can do from a bird eye view to figure out where are we kind of looking and seeing what will be maybe some of the sore spots, or where a spill might have happened, or where did they actually do the construction or damage. And then when we are all filled with this information and paperwork, then we head out to the field. And Brody, would you like to take a little bit of your awareness of what the field felt like for you when you were in the phase two and digging the holes?
Yeah, a lot of it is like what you mentioned, making sure that we have a proper documentation of what was it like before, what was the original natural state of the land, the parcel, like you mentioned, so that we know when we're coming back to home, when we're coming back to center, what was it that lit us up? What was it that made the actual ecosystem vibrant and alive? Because over the course of the years of reclamation, humans made a lot of mistakes on what it took to actually bring back a native grassland. And one statistic that actually really shocked me when I first got into the field was that they were still, to this day, in a lot of cases, I'm sure they've made improvements since, they still haven't been able to actually bring native grassland back to its absolute original form, because this is something that had been formed over millennia, and all these different factors of how God, creator, the source, whichever way you want to look at that, brought all of these elements together in this beautiful harmony and coexistence and co-creation together, is something that even humans, as much with our technologies and our research and our background, and it doesn't matter how many different samples, it doesn't matter how many different things you do, you're always going to have an effect or a disturbance on the land, on an imprint on yourself from your upbringings, your environment, your surroundings. And I guess the metaphor in the end is like you're never gonna maybe return back to perfect, but we're just always working towards and accepting and forgiving and moving towards what that newer version or what this reclaimed version is now. And it can be something that's more beautiful to you, to others, than what it was before. 100%. A lot of these places, strip mining and all these gross, disgusting things that happen across the land, some of them turn into nature water parks and wildlife preserves, and who the heck knows, water parks in some cases, depending on what we decide to do with that land after that way. But yeah, I think there's kind of a metaphorical sense where maybe it's not returning to exactly the way things were, but taking the best of what we had before, taking the knowledge of what we knew what was there before, and then enhancing and bringing it into the new era or the new season of what it means for our land, for our mind, for our body, for our soul.
Yeah, and when we would get into the field, in uh in my experience, what I was doing weed management and um pest control on that layer of like making sure all the bad things didn't encroach into the oil leases or the noxious weeds taking over the farmers' fields, or going into the cut blocks and making sure that the other invasive species didn't overtake the tree seedlings and things like that. So there was so many different environments that I personally worked through that was just very unique to figure out like how different each ecosystem and environment was, and how we had to treat it and deal with it on its own sensitivities, but yet also knowing how to really get to the bottom and deal with that invasiveness so it didn't overtake. And sometimes when there was just that much disturbance, or little disturbance, and how big of an impact it was if it wasn't dealt with, was a huge thing we started to see when we were assessing in the phase 2 part. So when we when I would go out to the field, also I was a part of the sampling process. So I was an actual phase 2 driller. And what I would be doing is I would be taking soil samples, and the other consultants would be taking the soil or water pictures, information. Then when I went into consulting, then I was, you know, directing kind of what was happening and where to find these different, especially when we're reclaiming oil leases, where there were salt spills, brine spills is what they're called, or oil spills, or where did some farmer bury an old dump yard in the background, what was kind of in the forestry part of it, what was kind of some leftover materials from old logging. Plants and setups that were there. So it was interesting to see how much humans would leave behind on other kind of environments. So, what brings that up for me in our own physical, mental, and spiritual and emotional self is that that's where a lot of people sometimes don't realize how big of an impact that little spill or that little comment or that little dig or that little like, oh, you'll sweat it off, or it's just something that we are societally okay with. That's just how we bully men, women, children. That's where some of the impact that is left in our spaces create just kind of a very septic or bigger problem, because then in assessing a parcel, say like an old oil lease, and a salt brine leaked, and they didn't realize there was a very high water table in that land or that area. What happens is that salt concentrate then leaches in from the soil into that water, and then also causes that to be moved, or oils or different pollutants go through that water and then move into another space. So just like in our personal selves, if you had somebody bully you, or you were abused, or had to deal with a tragic event, that then can leach into your emotions, which we classify as water, then has an impact maybe somewhere else down the road that you may not realize was a huge trigger because of what happened to you in the past. So that is where, when we are assessing in the physical layer of a phase two, in a mental or physical or emotional state, this is where you're going for therapy, retreats, having different treatments, massages, going for different fitness or workouts. Or this is maybe where we see people that are damaging their body with overeating, undereating, hormone imbalance. Maybe we're dealing with post-surgery scars and having all of these things digging up in about our health and our wealth, and not being financially stable, not feeling like they can have a secured relationship. And so much of this phase two work is exactly what Brody and I do, and many of these other speakers that are happening today, that they're going to be providing so much awareness that when you're in the thick of it, of the phase two, this is really important to know, how are you not contaminating what you're sampling and dealing with. So what we mean by that, if I was using a dirty knife that was stashed with WD-40 in the back of my drill truck, I would then create, oh, we've got features on here. We would then create a contaminated sample, or using dirty gloves from where we were taking one sample and then where we needed it to be a controlled or clean sample, that using our dirty gloves would have caused ourselves to get into something more on, then it's a very skewed sample. So when you're dealing with the therapy and the environment assessing for you, you have to make sure that you're really taking responsibility of knowing what is a clean control sample versus what we are sampling in the thick of it, and the toxicity or the impact or the hurt of our life. And so that's where, for me as a driller, it was very important to know that we were helping, even if it was the consultant, helping them know a little bit more if they were maybe new to consulting or sampling, that with my experience, I was helping them guide through that journey, and actually showing them maybe this is where actually more of the damage and the cause was, because I was experiencing more of that environment maybe than the sampler. So you have to understand, when you're processing, you might need to find somebody with the experience that you're dealing with your personal life event, so that you feel that they have the connection, the clarity, the wisdom, the experience, the integration, the love, and the growth from that, to then understanding how we really process that purification and that destiny and that wisdom, so that we can renew what will be the third step. And Brody, what would you like to share about our topic of phase two?
I just wanted to highlight that importance of the sampling. You know, when we're going through this phase two, this fun analogy that we're using with this reclamation of land is like similar to a reclamation of self. We're sampling the air, we're sampling the earth, we're sampling the different qualities of the earth, the plants, the water, and just getting a full overview of the entire site. And that's so similar to when we're assessing these wounds, these habits, these belief systems that we've picked up throughout our life. If we were never to go back to that quote unquote oil lease, to where the damage and disturbance was done, and the sludge and the muck and the mire was hidden under the layers and layers, as drillers or as people do in those types of practices, to try and avoid any type of environmental damage, or any type of fees or fines that they might have to do. We actually have to start uncovering what damage is actually there. And until you start working with a practitioner, going to therapy, going to these different modalities, some of them might come back, oh, clean bill of health. But that in those might be scenarios where it's like, oh, I don't feel like I really got much out of that type of thing. Oh, I think I'm just gonna leave this where it's at. I don't know. This all kind of sounds kind of hokey anyways. And you start doubting yourself. Why did I even spend the time coming out all the way out to this site? Why did I spend the time going all the way to this practice just to say, oh, everything's good to go. It's always been good out here. Nothing new to see. And that's kind of a typical thing of environment, because most of the times everything's good. But then, holy crap, you notice some sort of outlier. You notice how this one area or this one specific memory or this one specific thing brings up a certain trauma or belief system or thing that you've been repeating that's been constantly plaguing this site and this soul and this body for however long. And those can be the big eureka moments, because that's if it was like you said, a salt brine or an oil spill or something that wasn't attended to, that's going to affect all the organisms within that area and cause a lot of distress and cause a lot of unlife, in a sense, for that site going forward. So if you can isolate that area, hopefully repair it with different tools, different modalities that you would use for specifically on what you're going through that way, then the whole entire site, your body, mind and soul, can come back to that true essence of what you were truly meant to be, without any types of disturbances or distractions.
That just brought me back into a memory where we were doing a phase 2 assessment. And so we thought we were wrapped up for the day. And then the consultant was like, just for shits and giggles, let's just go drill a hole and a sample just on this far corner. And I was like, yep, absolutely not a problem. I get paid by the hour. So that's good with me. And we went and we drilled this hole, and literally it came out just with pure black sludge. And we were just both in awe, because this is at the end of the day. This is ready to rock and rumble. We were ready to, we thought we did our best due diligence of the day. And literally we then had to take another 54 samples and expand our site, because what we found out was there was a trucker that maybe was a little lazy and didn't have enough room, or something happened and there was an offload. And back in the day, there was maybe sometimes not enough awareness, and they did the best they could scenario, and we found just random situations. And I just giggled when Brody was sharing that. It's just like, yeah, you might not realize what was impacting your environment, because it maybe was in the far corner and we didn't really discover or dive or touch into that until maybe a relationship triggers it, or a job triggers it, or financial lack or gain triggers it. So yeah, thanks for touching on that a little bit more, Brody, because that was bringing back some golden oldies at that moment. So again, as we're assessing, as Brody brought up, it's really important to kind of be open-minded and realizing that maybe somebody else might have impacted this environment without maybe more of your knowledge and your advice. Or awareness, or without your advice. So it's just sometimes discovering that as we process throughout this day today, we do state that there is some trigger warnings. There are all levels of stories that are being brought to you today. So if this is something that is overwhelming you or creating that sampling in your own soul, and it's feeling like it's bringing up a lot of emotion or past trauma or experiences, please note that we are here to hold that space. Either Brody and I are going to be in the background while our speakers, presentators are going to be over. And if not, just know that we are here at the Niche Nation. Also, all of the people who are presenting also work with their own practices or are there as space holders or compassionate listeners. And I think what you guys are viewing is also a chat. Is that correct, Brody? That they're able to put some questions into this as we're in the live?
Yeah, it's the Facebook Live, so they'll be commenting on Facebook.
Okay, cool. And then I think there's other if there's other areas that you're wanting to submit in questions or things like that, please feel free to, really get forward on the Facebook comments. I will also upload that so that we are watching all those realms so that we can help you the best that we can. Another thing that we would like to share is today is the full moon. So again, when we're assessing, you got to see what else is impacting your space. And so a full moon, for any of you that might not feel that big awareness or that depth into it, we are dealing with the moon is what we watch with the ocean pulling in and out our own water because our bodies are filled with water. So we are dealing with the magnetizing tides also as the moon is processing. So if you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed and or really calm and excited or full of energy finally, we also have the retrogrades are ending. So much with astrology and differences of the day is going to be switching out. So just have awareness about your space. Tapping will definitely help. Breathing, having yourself a hot cup of lemon water or tea, some water, hydration, maybe having a bath while you're listening in. This is really important to just take care of yourself. Or maybe you need to write some stuff out, journaling. Maybe you need to do some releasing, yelling, running, exercising as you're listening to this process, because this journey of the phase 2, and then we will be touching on the phase 3 part of the reclamation process. And we'll give you a little snippet now, but we will kind of wrap that up at the very end of our talk at the later part of today. But again, remember, phase 3 is what's going to be tying us all together. So we have the abilities and the awareness of how much we have realized we are able to deal with that. So we are chiming in here soon. 8:00 at Mountain Standard Time is getting ready. Hopefully everybody's kind of getting pumped up. And I don't know. I'm so excited that this actually all worked. I'm more of the hands-on deck for the in-person things, and I can't thank the luckiest stars enough for a very technical, savvy husband of mine. Because without this process working, we wouldn't have the largest online conference for this process. So I'm very excited to just really bring this gift for you all. The channeling that I got for this was literally less than I think a month ago, that I felt that the last full moon was just something that was so impactful. In the Niche Nation membership, we have our members, they meet up every full moon to just go through the awareness, and that's only for members. And what I had one person say, like, this is life changing. Like, if I didn't know about the membership, I feel like I would have never gotten through her experience through that. And I said, what if we just make this open-ended for the final finale of 2024? We have witnessed so much, and we have experienced so much of what 2024 had in store for us. And so I said, maybe this is important to just bring this all to you guys today. So thank you again so much for all of you who are watching live or gonna hop on at a replay time, or just gonna be sneaking in for the golden nugget moments that they feel their soul needed right then and there and felt called to journey. And then again, we can't thank enough our amazing, just compassionate speakers. We literally have them all across the world chiming in for you today. So we are very blessed for the webs the world weaves and bringing in the big old web of life, so that we do get to have so many perspectives and stories, and helping you understand that there isn't no right or wrong way to do your phase 2 of assessing and to figure out maybe how all of this works. Maybe you might have been into this path of what you feel like a guru in your world and your spirituality, and then some people feel like they are just cracked open and very vulnerable and raw right now, and they don't know where to turn. And what is this thing called therapy? And it's crazy now, in the way that I grew up as a farmer and went into the oil patch and the environment, to now hearing literally blue collared farmer husbands and children and oil patch truckers talking about their chakras and or chakris, whatever they are trying to define. And it's just such a whole different world since when we were first involved and connected into this world to now where we are today. It's a huge blessing to know that just having a bit of that expansion and that discovery and that knowledge of what we have been all dealing with, maybe in our grand scale, that it is rippling out into the bigger part of our world, and bringing a healthy, hopefully healing and frequency, so people understand that there is a safe place to make that change and this discovery can happen. So any last thoughts, words, or aye captains, before we bring in our next guest?
Let's get this party started.
All right, awesome.